Ethan Miles stood outside the Hearth Cafe, hands buried in the pockets of an old jacket he hadn't worn in years. The sky was dull, clouds thick like wet wool, the kind of day memories felt heavier than weather. He took a slow breath. He hadn't stepped foot in this location, the first location he ever built, in almost 18 months. Not since he became CEO and the brand exploded into a 30-store chain. He had trusted managers, district leads, automated reporting. But something wasn't right. Customer complaints had quietly risen. Turnover was spiking, and yet somehow expenses kept climbing while profits stayed flat. So today, he wasn't coming as Ethan Miles, founder. Today, he was just Ethan, a tired customer, a man with a faded baseball cap and a wallet full of questions. The bell over the door chimed, the same soft chime he picked out 10 years ago. But no one looked up. Not the cooks, not the servers, not even the manager. Perfect. He slid onto a stool near the end of the counter and waited. After a long moment, a voice finally spoke. "What can I get you?" Ethan turned and found a young woman, early 20s, lip gloss, disinterested. Name tag reading. Alyssa. He smiled politely. Turkey melt, extra pickles, and coffee. She barely nodded before tapping his order in. While she worked, Ethan scanned the cafe. Everything looked familiar, yet wrong. Tables weren't wiped. Salt shakers emptied. A family at the corner booth waited for refills that never came. A couple at table 6 exchanged frustrated looks. The atmosphere felt tense, like everyone had learned to lower their expectations. And then Ethan saw him, an older man, shoulders rounded, apron faded, glasses taped on one side, carefully wiping down a booth with deliberate care. His name tag read, Samuel. He moved slowly, but not lazily, more like someone who cared too much to rush. Customers greeted him warmly. Kids waved. And every time someone did, Samuel smiled like it genuinely meant something. Ethan watched him work with curiosity and something else he couldn't explain. Respect. Alyssa returned with his coffee, and as she set it down, Ethan heard something he wasn't meant to hear. A whisper, sharp, irritated. "Swear if Samuel pulls that charity routine again, I'm telling Rachel he's skimming." Ethan froze. The man beside Alyssa, his name tag reading Devin, chuckled quietly. Let him. Makes it easier to get rid of him sooner. Rachel's already looking for a reason. Alyssa smirked. Good. I'm done covering for him. Guy barely speaks, barely keeps up, and still acts like he runs his place. Ethan's jaw tightened. Runs his place. Samuel didn't even look like someone who needed confrontation, let alone deserved it. But then, almost on cue, a woman approached the counter. She looked nervous, holding a crumpled wallet. Alyssa exhaled loudly. Again, she muttered, rolling her eyes. Ethan watched as the woman counted coins with shaking fingers. A child tugged at her sleeve. "Mommy, are we leaving?" I need another $1, she whispered, voice cracking. Before Alyssa could sigh again, Samuel appeared. Calm, gentle. He didn't speak loudly. He didn't hesitate. He simply slipped a folded bill into the woman's hand. Her eyes filled instantly. "I'll pay you back next week. You owe me nothing," Samuel said softly. "Just make sure those little ones eat." The child smiled. The mother mouthed thank you. Samuel walked back to his cart like it was nothing. But Alyssa and Devin, they stared after him, not in admiration, but annoyance. Devin grinned. Perfect. One more thing to add to the report. Alyssa nodded. Tomorrow, we make sure Rachel catches him touching the till. She'll fire him on the spot. Ethan felt heat rise behind his ribs, anger mixed with disbelief. They weren't annoyed. They weren't frustrated. They were plotting, targeting the only person in the room actually caring. The turkey melt finally arrived, but Ethan didn't touch it, because the moment the plate hit the counter, Devin whispered something that made Ethan's blood turn to ice. A quiet joke, but loud enough. Crazy thing is, Samuel doesn't know who owns this place. Alyssa laughed under her breath. He will tomorrow when he's fired. And then, just as Ethan lifted his cup, he heard the words that stopped him cold. Because Samuel Miles deserves to lose everything after what he did. Ethan's hand froze midair. Miles, his last name. His heart kicked into his ribs. Samuel wasn't just an employee. He was someone from the past. Someone connected. Someone holding a secret Ethan never knew existed. His voice barely came out. "What did you just say?" Alyssa blinked. Surprised, a quiet stranger spoke. Devin leaned forward, smirking. Satisfied. "Ready," we said. He paused, eyes narrowing as if studying Ethan's face. You know what? Doesn't matter. But Ethan knew it did, because the way Devin looked at him wasn't random. It was knowing, almost intentional, as if this wasn't coincidence at all, as if someone wanted him here, as if someone had been waiting. Ethan stood from the counter, gaze locked on Samuel, now wiping down tables with quiet dignity. Everything inside him shifted. Tomorrow, they planned to destroy him. But tonight, Ethan would finally uncover the truth. Because one question echoed louder than everything else. Why did a man with Ethan's last name live like a stranger in the company he helped build? And even more chilling, what did Samuel Miles do that everyone here was terrified someone might uncover? Ethan didn't leave right away. He stood there for a moment, silent, tense, watching Samuel work like nothing around him was happening. No resentment, no ego, just quiet focus. It didn't make sense. If Samuel truly shared his last name, why wasn't he part of the company? Why wasn't he listed as early staff? Why wasn't he in paperwork? Why wasn't he in corporate memory? Unless he wasn't supposed to be. Ethan walked toward him, step by step. When he reached the table Samuel was wiping, he spoke carefully. "Hey, excuse me." Samuel looked up, slow, cautious, like someone who had learned not to expect kindness. "Yes? Can I help you?" Ethan hesitated. Up close, the resemblance was subtle but undeniable. Same jawline, same small crease near the right eye, same shape of the eyebrows. Family, whether distant or direct. It was there. Ethan forced a steady breath. "I just want to say, what you did for that woman earlier, that was kind." Samuel paused. Really paused. Like the words took a second longer to process than normal. Then he smiled, small, tired, honest. "Thank you. Most people don't notice." Ethan nodded. "Oh, they notice," he murmured. "They just don't appreciate it." Samuel gave a soft exhale, not quite a laugh. "Maybe, but kindness isn't about being seen." Before Ethan could respond, the voice of the manager, Rachel, cut through the room. Sharp, irritated, always in a rush. "Samuel." He stiffened. She approached with a clipboard, tapping the paper like it already frustrated her. "These are your numbers from last week. You're too slow again. Orders take longer when you're on shift, and corporate is evaluating efficiency across locations." Ethan watched Samuel's shoulders drop, not with guilt, but with familiarity, like this wasn't the first time. Rachel continued, "If things don't improve in the next review cycle, we'll have to make staffing changes." Samuel nodded, quiet, controlled. "I understand." Rachel turned, and for a split second, her eyes met Ethan's. Recognition flickered. Just barely, but enough. Her posture changed. Her tone softened. "Welcome to the hearth. Let me know if you need anything." Then she walked away quickly, too quickly, like someone who suddenly realized the camera was pointed at them. Ethan didn't leave right away. He stood there for a moment, silent, tense, watching Samuel work like nothing around him was happening. No resentment, no ego, just quiet focus. It didn't make sense. If Samuel truly shared his last name, why wasn't he part of the company? Why wasn't he listed as early staff? Why wasn't he in paperwork? Why wasn't he in corporate memory? Unless he wasn't supposed to be. Ethan walked toward him, step by step. When he reached the table Samuel was wiping, he spoke carefully. "Hey, excuse me." Samuel looked up, slow, cautious, like someone who had learned not to expect kindness. "Yes? Can I help you?" Ethan hesitated. Up close, the resemblance was subtle but undeniable. Same jawline, same small crease near the right eye, same shape of the eyebrows. Family, whether distant or direct. It was there. Ethan forced a steady breath. I just want to say, what you did for that woman earlier, that was kind. Samuel paused. Really paused. Like the words took a second longer to process than normal. Then he smiled, small, tired, honest. Thank you. Most people don't notice. Ethan nodded. Oh, they notice, he murmured. They just don't appreciate it. Samuel gave a soft exhale. Not quite a laugh. Maybe, but kindness isn't about being seen. Before Ethan could respond, the voice of the manager, Rachel, cut through the room. Sharp, irritated, always in a rush. Samuel. He stiffened. She approached with a clipboard, tapping the paper like it already frustrated her. These are your numbers from last week. You're too slow again. Orders take longer when you're on shift, and corporate is evaluating efficiency across locations. Ethan watched Samuel's shoulders drop, not with guilt, but with familiarity, like this wasn't the first time. Rachel continued, if things don't improve in the next review cycle, we'll have to make staffing changes. Samuel nodded, quiet, controlled. I understand. Rachel turned, and for a split second, her eyes met Ethan's. Recognition flickered, just barely, but enough. Her posture changed. Her tone softened. Welcome to the hearth. Let me know if you need anything. Then she walked away quickly, too quickly, like someone who suddenly realized a camera was pointed at them. The first hint. Ethan waited until she left, then turned back to Samuel. How long have you worked here? Samuel thought for a moment. Since the beginning. Ethan's heart punched his ribs. The beginning. He swallowed. You were here the first year? Samuel nodded. The very first week. Before the sign. Before the recipes were final. Before everything changed. Ethan's throat tightened. No one in corporate ever mentioned to Samuel. No plaque. No original staff list. Nothing. It was as if someone erased him. Ethan lowered his voice. What happened? Why did things change? Samuel didn't answer right away. Instead, he set down the rag, leaned on the table, and looked at Ethan with eyes that held years. Sometimes, he said softly, success requires forgetting who helped you build it. The words hit harder than accusation, because they weren't angry. They were resigned. Ethan opened his mouth. But before he could ask the question forming in his head, the cafe door suddenly swung open. A man in a dark gray suit stepped inside. No food smell. No hesitation. No glance at the menu. He scanned the room, sharp, precise, until his eyes locked onto Ethan. And then he smiled. Not a friendly smile. A knowing one. He walked straight toward him. Samuel's expression changed instantly. The calm washed away, replaced with something Ethan had not seen until now. Fear. The man stopped at the table. Mr. Miles, he said smoothly. Corporate's been trying to reach you. Ethan frowned. I didn't tell anyone I was coming. The man's smile widened just slightly. That's exactly why they're concerned. Ethan glanced at Samuel, whose hands trembled just enough to notice. The suited man continued. We should talk. Privately. Ethan didn't move. About what? The man's eyes flicked, just for a fraction, towards Samuel. Then back. About things that are better discussed away from staff. It wasn't a request. It was a warning. Ethan stood carefully, watching Samuel, watching the room, watching the man whose presence shifted the air. As Ethan followed him toward the back hallway, Samuel whispered, quiet but urgent, be careful. They don't like questions, and they never expected you to come back. Ethan paused, turned. What do you mean they? Samuel's voice was barely a breath. The company isn't yours anymore. The suited man opened the office door and motioned for Ethan to enter. Inside, there were files already waiting. One folder sat on top, labeled, Confidential, Internal Termination. Subject, Samuel Miles. Signed, dated, filed, 3 days before Ethan even stepped foot in the cafe. Someone planned this long, before he came. Someone knew he would return. Someone knew the timing. Ethan slowly sat, and the man closed the door behind them. With a click that didn't sound like a lock, but a trap, the door shut behind Ethan with a soft but final click, the kind of sound meant to be subtle, but unmistakable. A boundary, a line, a reminder he wasn't just in a private conversation. He was in someone else's territory. The suited man took the seat across from him, adjusting his tie with slow precision, like someone preparing for a negotiation that already had a winner. Ethan kept his eyes on the folder. The name, the date, the signature. Everything about it felt wrong, rehearsed, scripted, premeditated. The man finally spoke. "You shouldn't have come here unannounced." Ethan leaned back slightly, not defensive, observant. "I wasn't aware I needed permission to visit my own company." The man gave a small, amused exhale. "A company changes when it grows." Ethan narrowed his eyes. "So I've noticed." The man folded his hands. "Let's not circle. We both know why we're here." Ethan raised a brow. "Oh, then tell me." A small pause, too calculated. Then, "Samuel Miles is a liability." Ethan didn't react. Not physically, but something sharp moved behind his ribs. "A liability," he repeated. "That's the word you use?" "Yes," the man replied calmly. "For several reasons. His performance metrics have dropped. He interferes with policy. He's human." The man blinked. The first crack. Ethan leaned forward. "You know what I saw out there? A room full of staff under pressure they shouldn't have. A manager manipulating the system. Employees mocking someone who actually cares." The man didn't flinch. "If this is about sentiment." "It's not." Ethan cut in. "It's about who he is." Silence. Thick. Waiting. The man finally spoke. "Then you already know." Ethan shook his head slowly. "No, I don't. But I'm done waiting for someone else to control the narrative." He tapped the folder. "What did he do?" The man hesitated, just long enough to confirm there was something. When he finally answered, his tone changed. Less corporate, more guarded. Samuel was involved during the early expansion. Contracts, staffing, agreements. He exhaled through his nose, controlled. He made decisions that cost his company stability and reputation. Ethan waited, and the man's voice lowered. He walked away, left chaos behind, left you to fix it. That hit hard, because if true, it meant everything Ethan rebuilt came from someone else's collapse. But something didn't connect. If he caused damage, Ethan said carefully, why hire him back? Why keep him at all? The man's eyes lowered, only briefly, toward the folder at Ethan's fingertips. That wasn't corporate's decision. Ethan frowned. Then whose? A pause, a small, deliberate breath. Then quietly, yours. Ethan froze. What? The suited man nodded. You signed the reinstatement 5 years ago. Ethan's chest tightened. That's impossible. You're welcome to verify the signature. Ethan opened the folder. There it was, his name, his handwriting, his signature. But the date? 5 years ago. He was in the middle of expansion, barely sleeping, traveling city to city, signing dozens of documents daily. His throat dried. I don't remember this. And that, the man replied softly, is exactly the point. Before Ethan could respond, there was a sudden knock on the office door. Sharp, urgent. The man stiffened. He stood slowly and opened it just 2 inches, enough to speak through, not enough to reveal. But Ethan heard the whisper on the other side. He's asking questions, and Samuel is talking to him. The man closed the door, not loudly, but differently than before. Contained, controlled. He turned back to Ethan, professional expression replaced with something colder. Whatever you think you're discovering, he said carefully. Stop. Ethan didn't blink. No. The man took 1 step closer. Too close. You don't understand. Samuel doesn't belong here anymore, and neither do the stories he carries. Ethan stood. Then I'll ask him directly. The man's jaw tightened. Don't. Why? The man exhaled, the first real sign of pressure. Because the truth is not going to change what happens next. Ethan stared. What is happening next? The man opened the door and gestured outward, not as an invitation, as an order. Corporate wants you at headquarters tomorrow. Early. They want this resolved before the board meeting. Ethan stepped forward, refusing to break eye contact. And Samuel? The man gave the final answer, without emotion. He won't be here tomorrow. As Ethan walked back into the cafe, he scanned the room, looking for Samuel. But the corner where he'd been working was empty. The mop bucket, the rag, his backpack, gone, like he vanished, like someone moved him the moment Ethan closed that office door. On the counter, where his plate had been, Ethan found a folded napkin. He opened it with shaking fingers, and written in small, rushed handwriting were 3 words. Don't trust them. Underneath, a small hand-drawn symbol, a circle, split by 3 vertical lines. The same symbol carved into Zara's storage locker. Ethan left the cafe with a napkin still clenched in his hand. The symbol on it, that strange circle divided by 3 vertical lines, sat heavy in his mind. He'd seen it only once before, on the original blueprint of the first cafe. A doodle, a marking, a signature, one he assumed belonged to a contractor or an artist. But now it felt like the key to everything. Rain started falling, soft at first, then heavier, as he walked his car. The streetlights blurred to the downpour, turning the road into streaks of gold and shadow. Ethan sat behind the wheel for a long moment, breathing. He checked his phone. No missed calls. No alerts. Nothing from corporate. Nothing from anyone. It was as if the company, his company, had gone quiet the second he started asking questions. Finally, he put the key in the ignition. He wasn't going home. He was going to the only place that might still hold answers. The original storage facility. The one from the beginning. The one no one talked about anymore. The building sat on the edge of town, bland, forgotten, and locked behind a rusted gate. But Ethan remembered the code, not because it was written anywhere, but because it was personal. The year he graduated, his brother's birthday. For 197, the gate clicked open. Inside, the air smelled like dust and time. Rows of shelves stretched into darkness, lined with old binders, receipts, equipment, the bones of the company before it became a corporation. Ethan flicked on the lights. They hummed awake one by one. And there, near the far wall, sat a single wooden cabinet, older than everything else, older than the business itself. The one Samuel always insisted should never be thrown away. Ethan approached it slowly. His heart wasn't pounding, not with fear, with recognition, like the answer was already waiting. The drawer slid open with surprising ease. Inside were only 2 things: a leather-bound notebook, a sealed envelope. Ethan took the envelope first. His name was handwritten across the front, not in corporate penmanship, not in legal handwriting, but in loops and careful strokes he hadn't seen in over a decade. His mother's handwriting. His breath hitched. He opened it gently. Inside was a short letter. Ethan, if you're reading this, then the truth has finally reached you on its own timing. Samuel is not an employee. He is not a stranger. He is your father. Ethan felt the room tilt, not dramatically, just enough to steal a breath. His father, the man he was told left when he was a child. The man he remembered only in fragments. The man erased from every story his mother ever told. The letter continued. He helped you build this business, long before you could afford equipment, staff, or suppliers. The symbol you found was ours. A pact, 3 pillars: integrity, people, purpose. When investors came, they wanted growth at any cost. Samuel refused. He wanted the business to remain honest. They forced him out, and they made you believe he was never part of it. A lie designed to protect you and remove him. If you still carry the values we built this business on, then find him before they silence him for good. He never stopped believing in you. Mom. Ethan held the letter to his chest, not because he meant to, but because his body moved before his mind did. A soft sound echoed in the storage room. Footsteps. Slow. Approaching. Ethan turned, and there, standing in the doorway, soaked from rain but unmistakably familiar, was Samuel. For a moment, neither spoke, not because there were no words, but because too many existed. Finally, voice barely steady, Ethan whispered, "Dad." Samuel gave the smallest nod. Emotion rippled across his face. Relief, fear, hope. "I wasn't allowed to tell you," he said softly. "They monitored everything. Every message, every visit, every connection." "Why," Ethan asked. Samuel stepped closer. "Because the company stopped being yours the moment they convinced you I was the enemy." Silence filled the room again, but this time it felt like truth, not distance. Ethan took a breath. "Then we take it back." Samuel looked at him. Really looked. The way a parent looks at a child they haven't seen grow but recognize anyway. "You're ready now," he whispered. "And you won't do it alone." Ethan pulled the leather notebook from the drawer and flipped it open. Inside were pages and pages of handwritten notes. Original recipes. Ideas never released. Community programs. Staff care policies. A blueprint for a company that wasn't built on shortcuts, but on purpose. At the very bottom of the first page was a symbol, the circle split by 3 lines. Samuel's eyes softened. "That symbol was never decoration," he murmured. "It was a promise." Ethan closed the notebook. Lightning flashed outside, not threatening, illuminating. He looked at Samuel. No hesitation, no fear, just clarity. "Tomorrow," Ethan said, voice steady, "I'm showing up to headquarters." Samuel nodded once. "And this time," Ethan continued, "they're not deciding what happens next." Samuel exhaled, part laugh, part relief. "What changed your mind?" Ethan held up the napkin. "The warning that started everything. Someone reminded me who this company was built for." Samuel's eyes warmed. "And who it was built with." As they walked out together, father and son, Ethan whispered, "We built this to feed people, not control them." Samuel smiled. "Then let's remind them." And for the first time in years, they left as a team, not starting over, but reclaiming what was stolen.